There's a buzzword for you: details.
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 I like it.
Focus on the details. It's not all the big things, but it's like the little details that really make you stick out from the
Details
rest.
matter.
Details matter.
Vincent, thank you so much for being on the show in this episode.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to be
man.
here today.
So introduce yourself a little bit, and we'll start to get it right into it.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, my name is Vincent. I'm the operations manager here at Mosquito Joe Miami. Been with the company for a couple years now, about 3 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Time flies when you're having fun. Enjoying this whole industry, something that I never thought I would be involved in.
Something different, right?
Something completely different. But like they say, 3 things have revolutionized the world: indoor plumbing, medicine, and pest control.
Yep.
So being part of one of those 3 has definitely impacted my life, shown me a lot about the animal kingdom, how things work, and I think we can learn a lot about the animal kingdom and even apply it to our daily lives.
So I know a little bit about your past, not a lot. So I kind of wanted to start there. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? Like just a little bit of the beginning.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm originally from LA. Grew up my whole life there. Moved to Miami when I was 18. But growing up, it was a lot of fun. Things were a little more civilized, if we can put it that way. Kind of a crazy world we live in nowadays. But I just had a pretty typical experience growing up. Outside all the time, always heading out to nature, riding our bikes, going to the mall, basic things that high schoolers do. But
how we used to do it. Back in the
used
day.
to do. Yeah, used to be outside. Now everybody's on their phone. Rarely exit the house, or kind of like we've created kind of like a hobbit type of society. But growing up, grew up on the outside. Very heavily into nature. We would go camping a lot, go to the beach, go to the snow, off-roading.
So where was it? Was that all in LA, or that was all through California that you did that stuff?
Well, we were based out of LA, but I mean, the good thing with Cali is in a couple hours, you're in a completely different environment.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah. My dad would take me out a lot, so we would go, off-roading, shooting up in the mountains and whatnot, target practice, all sorts of things.
So talking about your parents, what were they like? Were they an influence on you? Big influence, or was there a different influence growing up?
Sure. They were a big influence, first generation immigrants into the country. So everybody's trying to survive as usual.
Where were they from?
They're from Cuba.
Both of them?
They're from Cuba. Both of them. Yeah. Yeah. So we came here. I was 2 years old when we got here to the United States, and grew up, learned the language quick as a young child, obviously. Well, at 2 years old, you're just speaking Spanish at home and English at school. So grew up very, very pretty much like common Latin family. Parents working, obviously, grew up with the grandparents and whatnot. So really having that family structure, very cohesive family structure, really helped out. Avoided a lot of problems that a lot of young children are exposed to nowadays, since we did have a very stable family environment at the house. So that was very fortunate to be a part of that.
That's always good to have.
Absolutely.
Now, talking about your father, so my father passed away when I was about 15 years old. Yours recently passed.
Correct.
So talk a little bit about him. How did he influence your life, at all?
Sure, absolutely. So I always looked at my dad like a polymath. I mean, the guy had
Polymath. Explain that one to me.
That is the right word, right? Polymath?
I don't know.
I think so. He just knew about everything. He knew about politics. He knew about construction. He knew about history.
I call that a know-it-all. So
a know-it-all, yeah, kind of like an Elon Musk or yourself, as for that matter, since you know a lot about all sorts of subjects. So I actually look up to you a lot.
I appreciate that.
Been a big influence in my life. But yeah, both of us, it's kind of interesting. We both have a similar situation. Your father, unfortunately, passed away when you were a lot younger.
Yeah.
But we learned a lot from our dads. One of the things that I learned was really embrace what's in front of you right now. I think a lot of us, we look, I want to do this next year, or I want to be at a certain place a couple years from now. But, that's all nice and dandy, but we still want to embrace what's in front of us right now, like enjoy the moment. That's why it's called the present, right?
The thing with the fathers is, mine passed when I was 15, so I didn't have that much time with him. But to this day, I still pull things that I've learned from him, which is crazy to know. And then when people's fathers pass when they're older, I kind of, and obviously it's a sad time. But they've had time with their fathers,
right.
And I always tell people when their fathers are having issues or their parents are having issues, make sure to spend time with them, talk to them, learn from them, because when they're gone, and they you can't talk to them anymore. So it's very interesting how fathers have that effect on children, especially.
Sure. Sure. One of the cool things about dads, like I would see my dad in particular, he would wake up 5 something in the morning, get ready for work. Because in LA, there's a lot of traffic. So I kind of like always built that work ethic from a very young age. Just like, hey, part of being a man is getting up in the morning and getting yourself ready. And he would always make sure I was taken care of before I would go to school and whatnot. So those same virtues and those values, that passed on to me. That's what I try to do with my kids. A little bit harder now with kids, though. It's like they're not as gung ho and wake up, boy.
Yeah, they're more interested in being on the phone and video games. And I mean, I was into video games when I was younger, but
Nintendo was out.
It took a good part of my life, but it didn't take over my whole life.
Sure.
But talking about interest, what are some of your early interests? Like, did you have any career aspirations, or how'd you start off in the workforce?
Sure. So I actually it was funny because my grandfather was a doctor in Cuba, and so I was going to study medicine, but when we moved to Miami, kind of things were a little bit different here from LA. And I actually got involved with some different types of businesses and whatnot. So I kind of left the medical field and got more into the business-related aspects. And those things lead to a few different avenues that open up for you. But yeah, left the medical field, got into different business-related things, and then got into medical sales. Worked for a university for a while, and after that, I was like, hey, you know what? I was wondering, kind of like this whole topic is called Buzz Behind the Biz. So I kind of usually focus like on big businesses, and then I was playing with my kids outside, and in Miami we have a lot of mosquitoes everywhere. Yeah. So I was like, dang, I didn't even know like they had anything that could really help reduce them. So
most people don't know.
Yeah, they just think, oh well, I got to deal with it, but you really don't have to. I mean, there's options out there, companies like Mosquito Joe and whatnot. So it kind of caught my attention when I saw an advertising for Mosquito Joe, and I was like, hey, I wonder how, number one, how a small business, small family-operated business would do, and how would pest control dealing with mosquitoes, it just kind of caught my attention. Like, I just want to know like a little bit more about it, and that's kind of what brought me here.
You're jumping ahead on me because we're going to get to how you got here.
Okay, gotcha.
So you're currently in a leadership position. Were you ever in one before? Did you ever aspire to be in that position?
Yeah, so funny enough, most of the jobs that I've worked at, eventually they do bring me up to some type of leadership position. Every group is a little different. And I also noticed like post-COVID, the mentality of kind of people changed or shifted for some reason. I think like all across the board, a lot of people that I talk to is just like a little different now than it was before. But yeah, I mean, for the longest time, I have been pretty much in charge of individuals. And just trying to make them better and trying to set up processes so we can all kind of like know what is expected of all of us. And then as long as we stick around with those processes, I mean, things should function the way they're supposed to.
Yeah, well, that's great. So I like to ask this to everybody. So I have episode 2, so I've asked it to one person.
Sure.
But I do want to ask it to everybody. If you could give your advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Gosh, that would be read a lot more. Read all sorts of books, from fiction to nonfiction. It doesn't even need to matter if you're interested in a particular subject, but I think reading really broadens our mindset and like just the scope of how we look at life. So hands down, that would be the most important thing. Just read as much as you can.
So I'd have to agree with that too, because when I was younger, I think I read one book in my entire adolescence. Right. Yeah. Now as an adult, after 35, I have a whole bookshelf full of stuff. Right. Sure. If there's one book that you would suggest, like overall, your top book, what would it be?
Wow, that's tough. It's kind of hard to just say one book, but I think a couple books that impacted me was, number one, I do like the Bible stories because there's so many backgrounds from different peoples going through different situations. You can learn a lot from the key figures in it. 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene was actually like really good. As well, it just kind of shows you a little bit more about how life works, especially how things work in the business field.
Right.
The Fountainhead was also pretty good from a philosophical.
So what I'm going to do is I will link some of those books down in the description so that people can see. So moving on to Mosquito Joe, did you ever see yourself or imagine yourself growing into like an operations type position, which is what you are now?
Sure. So I in the position itself, I mean, I did see myself doing something like management related, never in the pest control industry, but I remember it was some of the patients I had when I was in medical sales, and they were into pest control, and they all seemed to be having a great time with it. And the stress level didn't appear very high compared to like a lot of the other industries. So I said, hey, these guys are having a blast. One particular gentleman, he would come in, he would do whatever treatment we were doing on him at that time. And then he was like, yeah, man, I'm going to go play golf now. I said, man, but it's like 1 o'clock. He's like, yeah, I'm done with work already. So I was like, hey, this looks pretty interesting. And every guy, believe it or not, that I saw in pest control had a pretty decent life.
Yeah.
And they were just like friendly people. They were kind of just enjoying themselves. And that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things that's always stayed in the back of my mind about pest control.
Yeah.
And it's not the typical industry that you think about when you're young. You say, oh, I want to do this as a career. But it is a very viable option. And especially since a lot of the older guys are retiring from the industry, well, who's going to take over?
Yeah, so there's a big baby boomer shift that's happening in the next few years where they're getting to an age where they need to move on, retire, and a lot of them don't have somebody to leave the businesses to. So that's something that I'm actually trying to look at and see if we can expand by purchasing out other pest control businesses. So that's a good point. So I wanted to ask you, I know when you were looking for a job before you started with us, there had to have been a bunch of other positions that you looked at. What was it with Mosquito Joe that you said, I'm going to give them a shot?
Sure. So number one was I wanted to see how a family-owned business operated. Also to see, like, hey, be coming from like big companies mainly to like a smaller place. That just kind of interested me. Also the fact that I would kind of anchor back to the times where I would be playing with my kids outside and I couldn't really enjoy the yard with them. So that was another thing that I kind of, I didn't like mosquitoes. So I was like, hey, this could be something that could help other people.
That anchor is a good point. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I still remember my father in our old house, before we would go outside to the pool or because we had a tiki hut, he'd always say, wait, let me go fog it. So he would go fog the whole backyard. Then we'd go out. 2 hours later, the mosquitoes would come back. You'd have to fog again. So that's always stuck in the back of my head.
Sure. Absolutely. And that's really the key thing. It's like that's what interests me in the position more than anything else was like, hey, let's have something where you can actually enjoy life together as a family, build those memories, like you said, with your dad. I wanted to build better memories with my kids, but we couldn't be outside. So that's really like the main two reasons what attracted me to Mosquito Joe.
And just so you guys know, the mosquitoes in Miami are really bad. So that's why.
Yes, they are.
In some places I know they're bad, but in Miami they're bad year round. When you started with us, you weren't in the role of operations.
Correct.
So where'd you start and how'd you, I know that story, but how'd you start and how'd you grow into the operations position?
Sure. I basically started with like customer service and like sales. That was like the main thing that I started when I came here. For some reason, I guess you guys saw something in me and you're like, hey, this guy seems halfway competent in certain things. So let's give him a shot. And that's kind of like how I grew into the position.
What are some of the biggest daily challenges that you have in the position? There are going to be a lot of other Mosquito Joe franchisees watching this, other businesses that have operations managers. Anything that comes to mind?
Sure. I think the biggest thing, not just for us here at Mosquito Joe, but like in any company, I think it's really just hitting the process, like setting up the process so everybody knows what's expected of them. For example, here at Mosquito Joe, we tell the guys as they come back, hey, make sure you stock up your truck for the next day, not do it in the morning. When most people won't understand this, but when we finish doing a job, sync right after, do what you need to do so the office can bring the work orders in and whatnot. So it's just really having a set process. And if everybody could just stick to that, I think it makes life easier.
Yeah.
And just simplifies everything. So
I think
are very clear cut.
I think a big part of that is that employees don't realize sometimes that we ask them to do things for a reason. Because we've learned that doing something when you get back instead of in the morning is better than being late to your first property, your first customer, right? And we've learned this we've been doing this for 10 years. So first of all, it's a franchise. So we already had a lot of those processes.
Sure.
Some people don't have that luxury where, when they start a business, they don't have anything, right? They have to learn as they go. But luckily with us, with a franchise, which is why I like franchises, is you kind of get all that information up front. Even though we're a franchise of Mosquito Joe, every Mosquito Joe franchisee is different.
It's a little different, right?
The region, the location, the people, the employees, everything's different. So you have to create your own processes according to that. And you've helped a ton of that in here in with Mosquito Joe Miami, and I just think that getting that across to employees is another important thing, because sometimes they just say, oh, another rule, another thing, we got to do this. How come we have to do it?
They don't see the reason
They don't
behind
see
it.
the reasoning. So I think a big part of it too is just explaining and having them understand why we're doing the things we do. Talking about technicians, which is always a big, a fun topic. How do you balance managing them? Handling the other stuff, the inventory, the fleet. It runs pretty smoothly now. So what's your thought process behind that?
Sure, and it is. I say I hate to have this sound like cliche, but it all comes down to process.
Mm-hmm.
So occasionally, yeah, we might drop the ball on one thing here or there. Like I guess that's normal, but from an operation standpoint of view, we also have like our own processes. So for example, once every like 2 weeks or so, we'll like really like check the vehicles just to make sure everything is okay.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, one of the things that I particularly do, since you mentioned the fleet, is like I'll walk around outside and make sure, while I'm checking to make sure all the vehicles are closed, I'm also looking at the tires, seeing what's going on, and are you having issues, because we don't want a situation where you got a flat in the evening and then in the morning you can't even get out to your first house because
we also have regular checks on that.
Yes,
right?
we do. And we also have lists. So like normally what we'll do, we'll take pictures of the vehicles, just have them there so we can compare 1 month to the other, how they look.
Yeah, and we do that because sometimes with a vehicle, you'll find a dent that you're like, I don't remember seeing that.
Right.
And then somebody ask who did this, and nobody's gonna say that they did it. So it's always good to have historical pictures, especially after, let's say, a technician leaves us.
Sure.
Document how that a vehicle was left, and then give it to the next person, so we know that if something happens in between, it wasn't the new guy or it was the old guy. And then what I was going to ask you about the technicians. Technicians are, right now we have a great team.
We
I have to
absolutely
say.
do.
I do have to
Absolutely.
say.
Best one I've seen so far.
Yeah,
Yeah.
likewise. So how do you handle them? I mean, they're it's almost, sometimes we say it's a daycare.
Sure.
How do you handle it?
Yeah, no, so great question. The thing with the technicians, I feel you have to be aware of what's going on in their lives. Okay, because whatever's happening behind the scenes, that's going to affect work. So one of the things that I try to do is find out, each individual, like what's happening in their home life, what's happening with their family, what's happening. A couple of guys just had kids, what's happening with that.
We have like 4 guys that have kids. Jeez.
Right. Exactly.
Something in the water here.
Exactly. It's that time of year, mating season. but we want to thank Mosquito Joe of Miami for sponsoring this segment of Buzz Behind the Biz. If you or your family have any issues with mosquitoes around your yard and you want to be able to enjoy the outsides and build those memories with your loved ones, feel free to call the office at 786-516-2488, and one of our representatives will be glad to schedule you so we can go ahead and take care of those mosquito issues for you to enable you to enjoy your backyard and have fun outside again. Yeah, so it's just kind of like really getting to know the guys outside of just like the work environment, and everybody's a little different. So one of the guys today, we had to give him a couple extra houses and stuff, and his way of dealing with certain things, he just calls and kind of vents a little bit. So as opposed to just shutting him off and no, let me just hear him talk. Okay, oh, I understand. Kind of like empathizing with them, but just kind of like each one is a little different. So we just kind of have to get to know each one of them. And one of the things that we push here a lot, which you actually have to congratulate you on the core values that everybody helped develop.
Yeah. So let me. I would stop you there, and we'll talk a little bit about that, because that was something that I felt was
needed.
We had core values, but we created them as owners and never really
got input from anybody else.
Yeah, or like told anybody what it was, right? Which is a big issue that a lot of companies have. They create their core values, their mission statements, and then they put it on their website. We tried something different here. What we did was, we're going to get rid of our core values, and we had a meeting with everybody, especially all the technicians, and we asked them, what are the values that you want somebody that works here to have? And each employee gave a suggestion, and we created a new core values based on their input, which I think was a big deal, because now if they don't show that value that they said, now it's a little personal now. Like it's up to them
And they have stock in it.
They have stock
since
in it.
they
Exactly.
also
Yeah, they have skin in the
brought
game.
up things
So,
that they wanted,
and then the other thing is when somebody new comes in, and we're training, and sometimes a new trainee goes with different technicians. A lot of times, new employees or applicants in their interview, they act a certain way to get past the interview, and then that's not their real selves. But a lot of times, when they get in a truck with another employee, their guard comes down, they become their true selves, and employees can tell what kind of person they are. So if we get reports back that this person isn't, one of these qualities, we then ask them, do you approve of this new person if you put your job on the line? And if it's a no, then, we move on and we keep looking. Because right now we're not hiring for skills, because the skill set to do what we do is not very high. We can teach that in a couple of days.
Sure.
What we can't teach is attitude, is, a personality. So making sure that people fit with our team is high in my book right now. So we were talking about how you have to be empathetic with individual technicians. How do you keep them as a team motivated to our goal?
Yeah. So number one, like you had mentioned, attitude, right? That like right there, if you're appreciative, and that's like the attitude that you need to have in life, it's like just being grateful for everything that you have each day that you're alive, that you have a job, that you are part of a team. So I think if your attitude is good, that's like the foundation for everything else that you need in order to really get ahead in life. Now with our guys, one of the good things with this particular team, and it's taken a while to get there, but I think for the most part, like everybody has like a really good attitude right now.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a good attitude, that like positive energy kind of flows through everybody. So keeping them motivated, I mean, one of the things that I like to do is if someone does something wrong, you have to call them out in order to address it, right? And see what areas of opportunities are there for improvement. But also if somebody does something right, you also have to call that out too. So one of the things that I try to do is when I see that they're doing exactly what they should be doing, I try to reinforce that. So sometimes we use Slack here to communicate, and sometimes I'll say, hey man, great job on taking all these good pictures, great job on finding, like one of the guys yesterday found some little plant growing on the gutters. So I saw that, I'm like, oh, perfect. He looked, he inspected, he did the right thing. So I called him out on it. Hey, great job on finding that. And actually shared it with the whole team. So that's going to make this individual feel good and appreciated, but it also helps the whole team to excel as well.
I think a good thing that we do here is we praise publicly, but what's the other word?
We deal with things privately.
Privately, yeah. And any issues, we try and deal with it privately.
Sure.
And I think that's a big deal too, because you don't want to call out somebody for doing something bad in front of everybody, because that just some people don't take that very well.
Right.
Now talking on that subject. How do you handle high pressure situations in the position, like equipment failures or a truck fails out in the field, or stressful days? I know your personality; you're pretty chill, like I am.
Sure.
So how do you handle it?
It all goes back down to attitude. It's funny you bring that up, because last week we had one of our techs that he went over the grass in this particular client's house and he got stuck. So my job is to help them out. I mean, we're here. Management is really here to help out all the frontline employees, to make sure that we're doing everything we can so the frontline employees are doing what they can do in order to service our customers correctly.
Yep.
So I mean, stuff happens every time. I mean, if a blower doesn't work, hey, I'm here to make their life easier. So I'll go out, take them a blower. We went out, we pulled them out of the grass area.
How'd you do that?
Oh gosh,
I wasn't.
We took
aware.
one of the. You weren't aware of that? Yeah. So we took one of the big rams, and then we took some of those straps.
Pulled them out?
One of them broke, but
jeez.
then the other one thankfully didn't. And so we were able to pull them out.
So you told them out.
We told them out.
Nice.
We told them out. Yeah. And then we had to kind of wash the area, because obviously dirt is coming onto the client's driveway. So we were there. I'm like, hey man, just don't worry about it. Take off. Go to the next one. And Travis and I, we stayed back, and we're just like washing off, and
Good.
called the customer, say, hey, we're so sorry. Whatever you need, blah blah blah. So kind of handle that. But
So
it's part of the fun, though. It's part of the fun. Like whenever, if everything goes smoothly every day, then there's no fun in the job. So me personally, like I enjoy kind of the chaos sometimes, because that's what we're here for, to kind of put out the fires.
Yeah, I mean, because I was in your position. I was the one doing all that before, prior to you arriving, and it's every day.
It's every day something new.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day with this many trucks on the road.
Yeah.
There's something every day. It's so crazy.
That's it.
Um,
And another thing, like it's funny because one of the things, and I think this will help out the other franchisees. And so in our weekly meetings, we have weekly management meetings, or not management meetings. Well, we have the management meetings,
Yep.
but we also have tech meetings on Tuesday mornings. And one of the things that baffles me is that I always ask the guys at the end of the meeting, "Hey, is everything okay with the blowers? Is everything okay with the cars?" "Yeah, everything's fine." And then one of the guys, a couple of days ago, he says, "Hey, there's some squealing going on with the brakes." I said, "Okay, but I've been asking, every week. I'm like, is everything okay with the vehicles?" And you say, "Yeah, yeah." I said, "How long has this been going on for?" "A month." I said, "It's been going on for a month, and you're telling me this now?" So these are part of the things that
Yeah, I don't know if it's something that they either forget or they
you're hearing
just
it every day.
they
So,
or they just I don't know if they're afraid to say something's wrong or that's something that I need to look into more because I don't know why it takes so long for them to kind of come up with issues because I mean it's their for us their trucks are their office,
Right.
That's how they get to work, that's how they perform the service. Without that, um, they don't make money,
right.
right? They're just their tool. Um, some people don't know how to take care of tools, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to teach them. And
Sure.
sometimes when they don't learn after that, we have to move on from them. So, with that topic, how do you handle some of the rough conversations with technicians, either having to I don't want to say scold, but bring up topics that they might have messed up on, or even letting somebody go? How do you handle that?
Sure. So one of the things, I mean, we're always learning ourselves. I try to learn from my past mistakes and see what worked, what didn't work, and how to just be better at whatever it is that we're doing. So one of the things that I do when there's a particular issue that needs to be dealt with, just deal with it right away. I mean, there's really you can't really beat around the bush. Like, hey, I just want to talk to you. It's a good time to talk right now. Bring them into the office separately from the rest of the group, and just bring up whatever thing happened. And so we have a verbal. One of the things that I'm doing now is just documenting everything. So after I have
It's
a
called
verbal,
CYA.
yeah. Sometimes you talk about stuff when you're running around and I forgot to document it, but no, you really have to document it just to make sure in case of anything down the road, you have it documented. So
And again, we do this because we've learned, right?
we've learned from
Sometimes we haven't documented things and they've come back to
Right.
bite us in the butt, and that's why we say CYA, cover your ass.
exactly. But I think a verbal first of all, even though you're still documenting it, but have a verbal with them. A second time, if it's the same exact issue, you write them up, and then if it still happens, then at that time you have to decide what are we going to do with this situation. For example, we have certain things. Certain things are a big deal, but other things are not really. So like, oh, you missed a bush. Okay, try to focus on the bush next time. But for example, we've had a couple of guys where lawn signs were not put down. So by state law, we have to put lawn signs. So that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And so if you talk to somebody already on a big issue like that, like a lawn sign, say, hey man, we cover this. Look, the statute says this. We have to abide by the law.
Yes. Sometimes they see a lawn sign as that's not a big deal,
Right. It is.
but it
Right.
is.
It is.
We
It
by
is.
law we have to put them down.
Correct.
So it is a big deal to us.
Correct. But one guy that we called out, like to get back to your question, I called out one guy on it, and sure enough, it hasn't happened anymore. So these are the ways on how I think you really need to it's not a joke. Certain things like it has to be done.
Yeah.
And if they see the urgency in that, I think they should be okay with it. Some people will step up, like this particular gentleman, and other people that don't, and there has to be other corrective measures.
Yeah,
taken place.
my philosophy on that is unless they've done something catastrophic or I usually don't like to fire right away
Of course.
unless it's something big, right? I always think they need to be taught, retrained. If they don't know it's coming, then we haven't done that correctly. So if we fire them and it came out of the blue from them, on their perspective, we probably didn't explain it well. We probably didn't talk enough to them about it. They should expect it coming, is my philosophy. Like we should have done all the steps till they know that I screwed up again, it's coming. Right. So I really feel that some people jump the gun. Sometimes there's a mistake, and some employers jump the gun and fire. Sometimes it's called for. Sometimes it's not. But if you can try and train that issue or whatever happened out of them, I think that's how you become a better leader, boss, employer.
So what you're saying basically is clarity. So make sure that things are clear, that there's no
100%.
misunderstanding.
I always say make sure it's clear that they know what they did wrong, that they know how to fix what they did wrong, and if they do it again, this is going to happen. Because a lot of times the employers will say, "Don't do that again," with no, okay, what happens if I do it again? And a lot of times when they do it again, they get fired. But if they were clear on what was going to happen if they did it again, they might have not done it.
Gotcha.
So I think clarity is a big part of it. Moving on to leadership, right? If somebody wanted to grow into the role of leadership, let's say operations, what advice would you have for them?
Sure. So one of the things is having that right attitude, having the positive attitude, having the can-do attitude. And one of the things that I think is very important is when you're done, like most people want to do just like the absolute minimum. That's just unfortunately how our society is. But I think when you have that attitude of like, okay, I'm done doing what I need to do.
Yep.
What else can I do? And asking whoever's their supervisor, hey, do you have anything else that I could do? How else can I help out? I think that type of attitude is what helps. If you're a good manager such as yourself, you see that in somebody else, and you're like, oh, you know what? This person, we could give them more responsibility, and that's how you really like grow in any position. Because
I think what you're talking about is value.
Sure, yeah,
right? Providing value, because you're paid on your value. Because if you don't provide anything, you're probably not gonna last long.
Right.
If you're doing the bare minimum, you're probably not gonna last long.
Yeah.
Because people see that. I mean, some employees think that just because I'm skating by, I'm doing what the bare minimum, that they're gonna be fine. Sometimes that's not enough for a company, right? Especially a company that's looking to grow, looking to scale, has ambitions. We need people that are looking forward, looking ahead. Because sometimes I can't tell everybody to look ahead in their particular role.
Sure.
So if we can find people that are like yourself, right, that you look for things to improve on, that's a sign of an employee that is worth their weight in gold, right? So I believe value is something that you need to bring as an owner, as an employee, as anybody. It's necessary in this world.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to
It's easy to stick out nowadays.
No,
man.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like- it's just-
Well, yeah, it's easy to stick out.
It's easy to stick out.
You don't have to do much.
Yeah.
You just a little bit more, and you'll stick out a little better.
Just for everybody watching us, for those people that really want to grow, what my recommendation is like, hey, when you're done doing what you need to do,
Talk to them.
say,
Talk
Which
to the
one?
camera.
Where this
Right
camera
there.
here?
Oh, right there.
So here's the thing: when you guys are out there, right, finish your job, but then ask, what else can I do? What else can I do? 5 words that will open up new doors for you. So don't be scared of stepping out, talking to your supervisors, letting them know that, hey, you're here to help. So if you can do that successfully, that in turn is going to make you successful in life.
Perfect. I love it. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. You have kind of like a passion project, I guess, right? Mancology.
Sure.
So explain to the people what Mancology is.
Sure. So Manicology is basically
Manicology. Sorry, I kept saying it wrong.
Yeah. Manicology is for us guys. We're men, obviously, but a lot of guys. Like when we first started the show today, you were talking about our parents, our fathers specifically. Like you learned a lot from watching your dad. I learned a lot from watching my dad. But a lot of younger guys don't really have maybe a father figure around. Or maybe they just don't know what to do, or maybe they don't know what it means to be a man nowadays. I've seen a lot of like 20-something-year-olds out of college that can't even change a tire.
Yeah.
So I mean, you see that all over the place. So Manicology is basically it's a platform where we help guys to make sense of the world and also to see what it is to be a man. Like how do we excel from what we talked about waking up in the morning. I heard guys like Jordan Peterson say that, hey, the first thing you should do when you wake up is do your bed. When you go into the military, that's what they teach you. Do your bed and iron your clothes and march, right?
So do you know the reason why they do that?
To basically, they want to, if here's the thing, if you could be, the way I look at it, if you could be faithful in little things, if you can just, the first thing you get up, you've done something conclusively. That's number one. It makes you feel good because you've accomplished something.
Because you've accomplished
one
thing in the morning. Yeah.
And you're building discipline.
Yep.
Because discipline, it doesn't matter if you're disciplined in the little or if you're disciplined in a lot. I mean, discipline is discipline. So when you start learning how to do your bed, especially kids coming out of, they're going to go to high school or school in general, and they wake up and they just leave the whole room a mess. Well, why? I mean, I used to clean my room like right away before I would go out of the house. So it only takes a few seconds, but that discipline translates into every area of your life. So if you can do your bed in the morning, you're going to study, you're going to take out the trash. Hopefully you're taking showers every day, because I know some guys, they don't bathe at an everyday basis at a certain age.
I think it's easier to make good choices.
Absolutely.
Once you've accomplished something in the morning.
Absolutely.
Like that. I think it's something little, right, that you can do in the morning, but that turns into, am I going to eat good, or am I going to eat bad for lunch?
Sure.
Am I going to go to the gym? Am I not going to go to the gym? Am I going to read a book, or am I going to watch TV?
Absolutely.
Those little choices, which now I'm learning that my choices today affect my tomorrow.
Sure. Your choices
So,
build habits.
Drinking alcohol, I now it's a choice. Do I want to feel like shit tomorrow?
Mm.
And it's usually no, so I stay away from it. Do I want to stay out late? I'm not going to get good sleep. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So now I'm very focused on choices at this part of my life, which is very, very interesting, because before this, you don't think they're choices. You just
Sure.
live, and you want to have fun, and you want to do this and that,
Sure.
and you know, it's not until you get older where you learn that all those decisions affect you.
And choices bring consequences.
Mm-hmm.
So you were mentioning about alcohol. Yes, absolutely. Like, we know alcohol becomes sugar in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not exercising, you're not eating right, so all that sugar is just going to get extra, you're going to gain weight from it. And then the heavier you get, now your body is dealing with more things. So you have a higher propensity for high blood pressure, for diabetes, whatnot, the things that you eat. And
But that's-
all the
that's
snack
even-
chips that are out there. I mean, we got to eat healthy too.
That's on the health side, but there's the life side too, like deciding to drink, getting drunk, deciding to drive.
Sure.
Then what's going to happen? You could cause an accident, kill somebody, kill yourself.
Sure.
So the choices you make in life now are very, very important. And if there are any younger people watching, take that
Sure.
take it with a grain of salt, but think about that, because
Always think of also, every choice you make has consequences. So I learned the hard way a few years back that, hey, don't ever think about that nothing bad is going to happen from a choice. You always have to decide that, hey, if I choose to do this, what's the worst that could happen? You had brought up alcohol and driving. We had somebody that worked for one of the Mosquito Joes. Her sister unfortunately passed because somebody was bar hopping, drunk out of her mind, and she ended up hitting her and her husband that just got married that same night. So they were driving home from the ceremony
Yep.
to enjoy their lives together, and in a split second. Why? Because that person's choices, had serious consequences.
not even on themselves, on somebody else's
On
life,
somebody else.
which is even crazier.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Manacology. What kind of topics do you cover on the channel?
Sure. So Manacology, since we wanted to make it like a man show, it does have different topics. So we'll have like words of wisdom of the greats, which we'll take well-known people or industry leaders or like philosophers and whatnot, and we'll kind of glean some inputs that they've provided and just kind of just talk about what did they mean by certain things and learn from their successes, learn from their mistakes. We have a couple other skits that are just kind of funny, using a little sarcasm and I don't want to say hubris, but using like basically sarcasm and just to make fun of some of the crazy things that you see in society nowadays. And but most of what we focus on, it's really just how to build up yourself, and just talk about choices, decisions. Sometimes we'll talk about certain things that are like current events and just kind of take give like our view on certain current events. Of one of our latest videos had to do with the fires in California, and just a lot of people are upset that certain people in leadership haven't done what they're supposed to do. Since we were talking about leadership and whatnot, like they just completely dropped the ball. Because California fires are every year.
Yeah.
Like you're expecting them every year. So how are you preparing? What processes do you have in place? Or not preparing, exactly. Not having water in like the San Ynez Reservoir. And so things like that. I mean, we talk about how that applies, with Buzz Behind the Biz. We talk about these processes, how it applies behind business. Yeah. But, managing is how a nation succeeds. So a nation will rise or fall based on its managers. Yep. So who are the people managing the show? Yeah.
So you focus a lot on empowering men on that channel. Do you think, or why do you think that's needed right now?
Sure. So when you have weak men, you have a weak society. That's the reality. men and women are different. Obviously, I think we were both created different, and when we come together, it's like two hands, right? Like you can hold things with two hands, or like a bird. A man is like one wing flapping, and then a woman's another wing flapping. But when both are flapping together, you can achieve a lot of things in life. So what happens is, a lot of guys, we really don't know how to behave as men. Like we hear a lot about toxic masculinity and things like. Well, what does that even mean? Toxic masculinity? You mean like a brute? Because masculinity is good, like femininity is good. And so instead of trying to be like each other, I think we need to like embrace our differences and say, hey, I'm a certain way, you're a certain way. Together we're like that little bird that
coexist.
Can coexist. Like that old book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I think it was a great book because it just shows you, look, we are different, and being different, that's a beautiful thing. So a lot of times in society, I think we're kind of like, downplaying our differences as opposed to like uplifting how we are different. And with men, like there's certain roles that we need to do. Like you as a man, one of the things I admire about you is that you know a lot about mechanics, you know a lot about IT, you know a lot about these other things. And your wife, which is kind of cool, people don't know, but I've heard your wife say, oh, my macho. And she says, I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool when a woman looks up to her husband, which is a beautiful thing because a lot of women don't look up to their husbands. So when she sees you acting like a man, she's impressed. So imagine how many guys out there that didn't have that role model as a father, or like didn't have a good father around, or maybe the father beat the kid,
or their role model is the phone,
or the phone,
TikTok,
exactly, or what you see on television. Because Hollywood is fake. Hollywood, it's a show. It's not real.
It's for ratings.
It's for ratings. Yeah. So, but you need to know basic stuff as a man, and that's kind of what we want to focus on. And
which I've done before. So I've done a training with the guys, with the team, because we have had women in as technician before, and we kind of had to show them, how do you change a tire? And 90% of them had never changed one, don't know how. Don't ask me why their parents haven't. It should be something they show, because it's just, if something happens on the road, you need to know how.
The problem we have nowadays, it's this like Uber mentality. For example, like when we were little, I don't know about you, but when I was little, I had to walk to a certain place to get food.
Ride bike.
Ride a bike. You go pick up, you go to McDonald's or whatever it is when you're little, go get a Happy Meal, but you had to walk to it. Nowadays, the mentality is, well, I don't need to do it. I could pay somebody to do it. But there's certain things you need to know how to do. You should know how to change a light bulb. You should know how to change a tire. You should know how to start a car.
Yeah, what happens if Uber goes under and or if the app has an issue and you can't get somewhere?
Of course. So
are there any lessons through Manicology that you've kind of transcended into your current role, into Mosquito Joe?
Into Mosquito Joe, I've transcended.
I think we just talked about one, but
yeah. I mean, it's really like the main things that I've seen from Manicology itself is more like on a family level. Like I see my kids, based on some of the skits that we've done, they're getting better at certain things, like doing their beds, like waking up on time. So I don't have to be on top of them, telling them, hey, get up, I'm going to be late to work, I got to drop you guys off at school. So in a family life, I've seen how some of the things that we've brought out have actually impacted, the children and whatnot, them getting their acts together in certain things, especially my son. Now, work-related,
if anything, if not, it's...
You know what? We had in our first episode of Wisdom of the Greats, we actually featured Arnold Schwarzenegger saying something, which his whole thing was about being useful, which has to do with like what you were talking about, adding value. Mm-hmm. So that to me, I just kind of remind myself, hey, be useful. How can you be useful? It doesn't necessarily need to be in the big things all the times, but in the smaller things. But if you can be useful as a man, as a woman, as an employee, that's what I think will really get you far in life.
So what do you think, what's next for you in Mosquito Joe? Are there any big projects or anything then that you have in the pipeline?
Oh, we're trying to fix, clean up the warehouse a little bit. But for Mosquito Joe, this is like really right now, this project this month is about, since we are in the love month, I have been telling the guys, hey guys, it's a love month. Let's build an affinity with our vehicles. Let's clean them out a little bit better. One of the things, we bought some cleaning supplies. So I've been telling all the guys as they come back, hey, make sure that you spray, like a detailer on the inside. Let's clean up all the junk in the car. Myself and one of my colleagues, we're trying to clean up, organize the warehouses a little bit more. And so let's show a little love to our work environment. And that's basically the key project that we have going on for this month.
So what you've seen, where we've come from since you've been here, what do you see for us in the next few years? You know, as seeing it from your perspective, the operations side of it, you have any?
Sure. So a couple things. Number one, which I think we're almost at that level, it's really having like a good cohesion amongst the techs, and that really is going to help expand the business when you are happy with the job that you're doing, where you do have a good attitude, where you do know what's expected of you, where everything is clear cut and clarity, like we were discussing. I think with that, like that's like the foundation that we need in order to really like springboard into the next level. I know corporate has like certain things that they're doing now with like a total pest control on the outside. Exactly, total home
Pest defense.
What's it called? Exactly.
Home pest defense.
Home pest defense. So with these things, I think we can offer our customers a lot more services and kind of just have like an umbrella where we can really take care of their needs.
Yeah.
Because everything in life is always about taking care of somebody's needs, right? Find a need. If we can do that, and the customers can enjoy their yard, so they can build those relationships with their kids, so they can have the barbecue, so they can bring their friends over and build those memories. Because at the end of the day, you know, everything you have at the end of your life is like, hey, what memories did you build?
Yeah.
You know, what were your experiences? We're all a sum of our experiences, right? So I think if we can make that more efficient for our customers, that they can enjoy themselves more, then that's going to be better for us from a business perspective.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the technicians, and we're saying that this is one of the better teams, or I would say the best team that we've had in a long time.
Attitude-wise, for sure.
And that's what matters, right?
Yeah.
That's, at least for us, for the office, keep our sanity.
Sure.
The attitude matters. But I still think we've been doing something right before that, because about 99% of employees that have passed through our doors and are no longer with us, they all want to come back.
They all want to come back.
And I think that's a testament to you, to the team, because we create an environment where it's a good environment to work at.
Sure.
You know, we try our best to do it. The trick is now to start hiring better. Again, it's hard because people are not their true selves when they're coming through for the interviews. You know, they put on a facade, they put on a show, and it's hard to get through that. But I think implementing our strategy on hiring, and you know, making sure that the guys, our current technicians, are interacting with the trainees, is going to be something that is going to be fruitful in the long run, because it's hard to keep a group of guys happy for an extended period of time, especially in the summer when it's
it's brutal,
90-something degrees, 100 degrees out there. If you were able to sit down with anybody, past or present, who would you want it to be?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I'll have to think about that for a second.
Yeah,
but
you know, for me it's easy because I've had obviously my father. You know, I never had the chance of talking business with him.
Sure.
I was always involved in the business. But if I could speak to him about that, that would be something that I'd want to do.
Sure. So somebody that I would like to talk about, or rephrase it, somebody that I would like to speak with would actually be Julius Caesar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Julius Caesar. I want to find out how he was able to do so much with so little, because he didn't have a whole lot of legions when he basically went into northern Gaul, and because of his leadership, you know, Rome basically took over. But how did one person with a small amount of people overcome such big obstacles, and how did they really expand the empire the way that nobody else had been able to do before him?
Yeah, you got to think what type of influence he had.
Of course, on his men.
Over those people, yeah. Over his men, or like to have that type of loyalty.
Sure.
He had to have said some amazing things.
Absolutely. And you talked about our guys during summer. Well, it gets cold in that particular region of the world. So when you didn't have all these fancy clothing the way that we have,
Probably have metal.
all the gear that we have nowadays. So you're marching a bunch of men into like uncharted territories, completely different people that you're not familiar with at all, in the cold weather, wearing sandals, right? So how did the loyalty of these men kick in? So we're trying to get guys to spray, let's say during summer, but these guys are risking their lives, and a lot of them died, for the glory of the empire. So you see how nothing really changes in life. I mean, you're talking about conquest, but with business, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's how was he able to do it? That's somebody that I would kind of really want to sit down with and pick his brain a little bit. Is like, how did you get all this loyalty from the people around you, risking their lives, being out there for years at a time, and not complaining?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't know if they were complaining or not.
No.
They probably were. So I want to ask, the last thing I want to ask you is, we always ask for one buzzword. What's one buzzword in business that you think is I think I might know the one you're going to say, but yeah, give me a buzzword.
A buzzword? I'm going to trick you though.
Okay.
Go beyond.
Go beyond.
Go beyond.
Technically 2 words, but
Yeah. Once a
a
qualifier.
buzz
but-
phrase. There
A
we go.
buzz phrase.
There we go.
Go beyond. If you can just go beyond a little bit more than what anybody else is doing, you've already stuck out. One of the things I learned from you is, for our guys, for example, when they're out there and you tell them, hey man, bring in the garbage, or get a palm frond that's on the floor, break it up, throw it in the trash, or flip the dog bowls over, then fill it up with water again. And when you leave, there are these little details. There's a buzzword for you: details.
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 I like it.
Focus on the details. It's not all the big things, but it's like the little details that really make you stick out from
Details
the rest.
matter.
Details matter.
The
Absolutely.
small things matter.
It's the small things, man.
So, Vince, thank you so much for being on today.
Thank
I
you
really
for having me.
appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun.
It was awesome learning more about you, your background,
Thank
some
you.
things I didn't know. So that'll be it for episode number 2. Thank you so much for watching. Links for Manacology will be down below in the description. Also, any of the books, our buzzword will be there. Please leave a comment, subscribe, share. You guys know what to do. It's YouTube. See you next time.
Take care.